Hey everybody, how are you doing? Now, I was looking at MLFlow inside Databricks for a customer this morning, and I noticed there was something new. There was a new tab in MLFlow under my model which had serving. Now, if you've been following our videos, you'll know that we did a video a while ago where we looked at some of the announcements that came out of the Spark Summit. And one of those was the ability to have model serving inside Databricks. So now that's different to how you would kind of do batch machine learning. This is actually giving you an interactive endpoint that you can call and that you can basically build your model inside Databricks and then really rapidly just spin up an API and start running your models against it. So what I want to do in this video is have a look through what that is. I mean, I've only just got access to it this morning. I don't know when it went live, but I think it went live this morning. So I want to take you through some of what looks good, some of what maybe doesn't look quite as good, and let's try and have a look and try and work this out together. All right, let's have a look. Okay, so here we are over in my instance of Databricks. And now this is an instance that we use a lot for a lot of our demos. And what I have in here already is a pre-baked, pre-built model. And what that model is it looks at an example from Databricks around bike regression. And it works out predicting how many bikes should be at any particular location at any particular time. So if we have a little look over here, now this is the model registry. So I'm going to be clicking down here in my model registry and I'm going to be having a look at the models I've got. And now you'll notice here we've got this new thing, right? For starters, registered model, the model registry is in preview anyway. We're going to do a load more videos on really trying to step you through all of the stuff that's happening here in the next couple of weeks. But this thing is the new thing, right? Share and serve machine learning models. That's a new tab. That was something that has arrived in at least in the last couple of days. And you can click more and it's going to take you off to some of the docs here and you can have a read through. And what I'll do is I'll put a link to all of these docs down in the description. So heading back over here, I've got a model which I've registered already. If you've never seen a model registry before, it looks a lot like this, right? You've got your individual models that you've registered and what state they're at, whether they're in staging, in production, if they've been archived, and you can go through and step through all the good stuff you get with MLFlow. We've got an old MLFlow video, which again, I'll link in the description. It's from about a year ago now, which we've been meaning to update, and we'll go through updating that over the next couple of weeks. But if we click into this, so into my bike best model, up here, we've got all of the details that you normally get about this model. I've got one version, and that version is in production, okay? My version 1 is in production. Now, these are all of the details that you normally get in here. You get things like your description, right? So you can add in, this is a bike model, and save that and get all of the good stuff that you get there. Then you've got this new tab up here, serving. And now this is where things start looking a little bit different, okay? This is where we've got something new that we can play with. So we want to enable real-time serving behind the REST API interface. Now, whenever we've been doing machine learning inside Databricks before, we always say Databricks is absolutely fantastic, right? If your problem is batch. If you've got a load of data in a data frame and you want to run over every single row, every hour, every few minutes, however long that is, it works perfectly for batch, fantastic for batch. But for REST APIs, for something interactive where you need a real low latency, it can be a little bit more problematic for that. So we're going to have a little look at that, and this is what this is for. It's for that more real-time use case. So I'm going to hit enable serving, and now that's going to start spinning me up a cluster. So it's going to spin me up I'm not actually too sure if it's a cluster or a single node machine at this point, but it's going to spin me up something behind it, and it's going to give me this interface. Now we're going to come back to this in a minute. I'll just quickly show you what the model is and a little bit of MLFlow so you can see it so that you know what we're working with. So if I click down here under my version 1, what we've got here is a bit about that model, and I can click in here and I can see the source run. Now this demo is a little bit out of date. What I haven't done is registered a schema, and I haven't registered any examples. And you'll need both of those to make this work effectively for your end users. But for this demo today, just giving you a high level overview, it's going to be fine. So we can click here, source run. And that's going to take me into the individual run that I use to build this model. So you can see here, I logged a couple of parameters. I logged a number of iterations. I think this is a decision tree model, or random forest by the look of it. The number of trees, the tree depth, and a couple of the metrics that I got out of the back of it. So the coefficient of determination there, the R-squared value, and the root mean squared error. And in here, I've registered the model, and then that model has been logged into my model registry. We can have a little look at the code behind it. If I click on here, we can see the source notebook, and you can see everything that's gone into building out this model, right? The data it was using to import it, the actual script here. So so it's using a random forest regressor, and it's doing a couple of different parameter sweeps to have a look, find the best model, and then register that best model. So that's what it's actually doing. Now, if you were to run this notebook normally, if I turn experimentation off and I kick this one off, it's going to do is it's going to install a few things, come in, import that data, and do a couple of little transformations to the data. Then it's actually going to run that model. Now, that model will train and produce a model, and actually log it into the registry. And it's going to go through and do a couple of bits and pieces. I'm going to stop that actually just for the moment and just kind of explain what's kind of happening here. So what we've got is we're coming in, we're going to train our model. Once our model's been trained, we're going to log that to the registry, and there's a load of bits and pieces in here we'll come back to. But what I want to do now is kind of show you that model in the registry, and let's try and work out what we can do to actually interact with it. So if I head back down here, we can have a look at the models that have been registered. Hopefully our latest version has come up. Okay, it's currently pending. So let's click into here. Let's click into our serving, and this is just spinning up in the background. And you can see that it's building out a new cluster called MLFlow model bike best, which is taking the one from my model registry, right? And let's have a little look at what we've got here. So we've got the various different model versions that we've got, and we can see that we've got a couple of different URLs that have been spun up for us, so that presumably we can run against any one of these URLs. And we've got a couple of different ways that we can call our model. So we've got a browser-based call. We've got curl if we want to do it through a command line. And then we've got Python as well. So we can see it's spun up, what we want from a pandas data frame, piped in the endpoint of where we're going to be sending this to, and then all of the code that we kind of need. So hopefully we can then take this code, incorporate it into our application, and we should be up and running pretty quickly. All right, let's have a look what else we've got. So here we can send a request and a response. So under our request, it's saying, right, this is the format that we're expecting. Let's zoom in on that. So the request should be formatted as JSON, and it should be something that can be translated into a pandas data frame. So that's what it's going to do. It's going to convert this stuff into pandas and then push that into your model. And so you've got a couple of examples right here. You can choose to say, right, I'm going to pass in the full schema there of A1, B4, C7, and then an array like that, or presumably you can do it without actually expressing what the schema of the file is. And then from a response, we're going to get that structured. So response is structured depending on the model type, and we encode it in the same fashion as an input. Commonly it's a pandas data frame or a NumPy array, so some way that we can interact with that model when it comes back. And down the bottom here, we've got logs, and these logs are going to spin up and sort of show you, at least what's happening inside your model and give you a good indication of where to start looking if something's not quite working. And then we've got some version events. So what's happening, presumably what's being logged here, how often is this model being scored, what's kind of happening with it, so we can see if people are interacting with it. Right, so apparently this is ready. This bit still says pending. I'm just going to refresh this and see what we get. So that is almost there. You can see it's setting everything up here. Python 3.7.5, whole load of different packages are being installed onto this cluster for us. And it looks like it's preparing, it's almost basically there. Now, we can hopefully start adding a request into here and then get a response back from our model. Now, this model is expecting, let's have a look at the schema that we're expecting. What we want to do is we want to run everything up from here. Let's run all above against our model, and let's get some predictions back while that's currently spinning up. So what our model is expecting, if we scroll up here, we've got a whole load of data about when a bike was rented, and we're trying to do some regression to say this is going to be, and we anticipate this number of bikes to be rented in this particular time. Now that's just running, it's just going to attach to my cluster, and that's just going to run through. Once that's all run, then we can have a look at what we're expecting. But the format is typically going to be, we do a bit of one-hot encoding to get a one-hot array of the years and the months and the various different attributes and parameters that are going into our model. So you can see here we're importing a whole load of bits and pieces, and yep. Okay, let's just change that one over. Let's go back. What are you doing? Okay. Right, you're waiting to run. Okay, that's all running through fine. So we're importing some data. Now we're going to use the Databricks datasets data. So this is the open data that everybody should have available. If you've got Databricks, you can just run this notebook, right? And we're going to do some manual encoding here to convert the dates. And we're going to import that all into a data frame, and then we're actually going to run that model, and then we're going to try and get some scores back. So here you can see I'm going to take the run ID of my model as well. So this is using some MLFlow logging. So one of the great things that MLFlow does, which we'll look at as a proper video, is experimentation tracking. So it's going to take the parameters that you're using, and it's going to log them all so that we can see. And where it's going to log that is over here in this experimentation. So we can see that is the model that I'm currently running. We've got a couple of inputs. As it goes through and trains, we'll start getting a list of the root mean squared error and any other metrics that we're actually going to log against this model. So you can see here that our model is actually training currently, chunking through a whole load of jobs. It doesn't take a great deal of time to actually train this model. It's not a great deal of data, and it's quite a naive process. And there you go. You can see now that's finished running. Let's get rid of these. That's finished running, and we've got an RMSE, of 54, and we've got a R squared of 91, which is good stuff for us. So now what we can do is we can come down here, and we've run that one, and we've run you. Okay. Is pending registration. Right, that's fine for us. So we've trained that now, and we've got a new version of our model. If we hop over into our models, there we can see we've got version 1, and now we've got version 2. We've got bike model best, right? It's a slightly different version of what our model is. We've got a version 1 there, and we've got a version 2 with some notes and some other bits and pieces. Okay, let's go back and let's have a look at what else we're working with here. Okay, so we've got our bike best. We've had a look at what's being used to train it. Now let's have a look at some of the data that we can call to it. Okay, so if this is all ready now, if this was working correctly, we'd have a little show example down here. We could click that and it will populate an example of the data that we're expecting to see. Now this data has to be able to conform into a pandas data frame. So let's have a look and try and do that. Now, I've done this ahead of time, and what I've done is I've created the JSON schema of what we need for this data. So I've got the year, I've got the month, and I've got the humidity and other data. And you can see what I've done is I've wrapped that into a JSON array. So I've got one example here. I've got one observation, but if we've got multiple observations, we can do that. And let's try that in a moment. So I'm just going to copy this and pop it over into my request here. So I'm just dropping that in because I'm just going to use the browser version and I'm going to hit send request. Hopefully if it's working, right, we're getting a response back. So now that is my model deployed with a serving layer, and I can switch this around to try out different versions of my model. And what I can also do is, now that's a response that I can wrap up into an API or something from one of my applications. I could come in here, copy this, and hopefully if we drop in a couple more, let's drop in 3 more, let's change a couple of things in here. So let's put that year, switch that round, and let's also change the month of rental, and let's also, most importantly, change the hour of the day to the 8th hour of the day. Let's leave those the same. Let's change the month. Let's make it a later month in the year. And let's change. What else have we got in here? Let's get rid of you for starters. And let's just change the season. Sure. All right, let's try that. Let's drop that in. And let's hit send request. And hopefully what we should get back now is 3 requests, right? So there we've got an array of our 3 requests coming back with the different amounts that we would need to provision for that bike rental. So if you've got a whole load of data, you encapsulate that all as a JSON object, send it all off. This is going to work. It's going to return you those couple of results, and now you can incorporate that into your own application. Right now, what we've got at least is through the browser, if we hit send request, we're getting some responses back. Now, this has spun up a cluster for us. If we have a quick look at the clusters, you can see that we've got a job cluster which is running. Now, this has been built for us. Now, I don't know if this is a UI thing or what, but there's some quirky stuff happening here, okay? So, first of all, cluster mode is standard. I kind of would have expected it to be a single node cluster, but I'm not quite sure, why. Maybe it's a cluster. I mean, you can see here that we've got 0 workers and a single driver. So presumably we're just working on a single node anyway, even though it's not in single node mode. You've got this different Databricks runtime that we've not seen particularly before. It says here that, we're using a custom local snapshot serving a Docker build as well. So presumably this is a running inside a Docker container. Again, not a great deal of information actually about what's happening here. Now, this is the weird one, right? It says that we're using Python version 2, although we saw when it was being built, it was installing Python version 3. And more interesting, if you have a look at that list, it's actually using Anaconda, or it's actually using Conda, so it's spinning up a separate environment, which is a Databricks, a Python 3 environment. So maybe it's by default 2, but it's installing your environment with Py3. Now, again, no notebooks, presumably no Spark UI in here. No, right? Because it's not necessarily a Spark cluster, is it? It's just using pandas. So what else have we got in here? Okay, we've got a master UI appearing. Okay, so we've got a master UI appearing. So, there's definitely a Spark cluster there. It's just that we don't apparently have, an actual running application of it, which is really interesting. Right, okay. That was a real quick overview of what we have. So in summary, right, we've got this new serving tab. I think it's private. No, it's public preview now. So you can go and have a look. So saying I'm going to drop a load of links in the description. Hopefully you can grab those, make use of them. And let me know if you have any questions. And we will have a go at getting that. Let's just have another look. Post our data into there, copy it, send a request. Hopefully what you can see here is we get those responses back pretty quickly for our model. And we've got something here that we can now spin up and push out to our end users and to our applications. So super quick, super easy to use. Was it production grade yet? Probably not. It's still in preview, right? There's certainly a lot more that I would want to see out of this, such as, a better log of what parameters are being sent to this, some model management, maybe some decay monitoring in here, a whole load of bits and pieces. But for what it's doing, this is a damn quick way to get up to speed with a model being served. All right, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, all right, see you later.